Welcome to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast.
Hey, welcome back to the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. We're your hosts, John Farquhar of Summit Risk Solutions and Chris Harris. Sometimes we just chat, and that's what we're doing today. John and I are going to discuss how we became involved in safety, and I'd like to say how we became safety professionals. So with that, let's bring Johnny in. Good day, Johnny.
Hey, Chris, how you doing? Gosh, I haven't seen you in a day or two.
Well, there, we already had our first laugh. Okay, so we're talking about safety professionals because I know you've been asked, I've certainly been asked, how in the world did I become the person I am today in the profession that I am? John, how did you, was this something you planned to do, become a safety guy?
Actually, no, farthest thing from my mind, to be honest with you. I started my career in the 80s as a driver, then moved into being an owner-operator, owned a couple of trucks, and then shortly after that, I bought the company that I was working with. My friend was wanting to retire, so I took it on. And prior to me buying the company, one of the things that we struggled with was some safety management, right? So, and a couple of things that I stepped into was like, that doesn't look like it's very hard. I could do that, from doing some compliance files, maintenance files, making sure that we ordered our profiles to review them, and back then they were absolutely terrible. But there was some things like that. And even when we were doing, we didn't have IFTA back then. It was a very much different program back then. And you had the old bingo card you put, and whatnot, and you had to get permits for each state. Well, I got into saying, well, we're using a service for that. God, we could save us a bunch of money if I did it myself. Is that possible? And Floyd, who owned the company at the time, was like, yeah, whatever. If it's going to save us some money, why not? I'd rather pay you than pay somebody else. So, so I just took it upon myself to reach out to those folks, learn what I could do to manage it, and I didn't, how do I want to say it? I didn't burn a bridge there, because if I ever needed their help, I wanted to have that, but I just let them know I was wanting to learn how to do this. So that's kind of how it started, and then it was just one thing after another. And then I remember having this insurance guy come in. I was like 10 trucks at the time. And this insurance guy, they called up and said, hey, I want to come in, see you and whatnot. And, he had a couple of suggestions and whatnot, and said, you should do this and you should do that. And you should, tidy this up. And what was hilarious was he knew nothing about trucking. He'd read the regulations, and that's all he was going by. So at first I was a little offended, because I thought, well, who are you to tell me? I've been trucking. I know what I'm doing. But then I realized, I've been trucking a lot, but maybe I don't know all the rules, all the regulations that I should. So I reached out to a couple of friends of mine who were doing some safety work. And I said, hey, I could use a little bit of help. And sure enough, they come in and, charge me a fee and whatnot and help me put some things together, and then said, here, you don't need me all the time. You can do this yourself. Just put this together, make this happen. Here's your template, and away you go. And that was kind of the starting, the first steps, I guess, into my safety professional career. But I didn't think of it at the time, because I was shortly after that, I took on the ownership of the company. And then it just became part of the ownership, It wasn't until I closed the company and then had to decide what I was going to do from there.
So you closed the company and became a safety guy.
Yeah, that was, it was kind of hilarious, because my wife and I, when we shut the trucks all down, we sold them all, and, we're like standing there in the shop, it's all clean, and, we'd give up the lease on the shop, and we're kind of going, what are we going to do? I said, the only thing I know how to do is drive. I don't know how to do anything else. I'm just a driver. And so we decided I would take a few months off and just kind of think about what I wanted to do. Maybe I would go drive for a company or something. And it was just totally by chance. I got a phone call from a friend who runs his own small trucking operation. And he said, hey, I need some help. And I know you did this for your company. Would you be interested to come over here, maybe help me out a day a week or something, and help hire some drivers and stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess I could do that." And then that turned into another phone call, which turned into another phone call, and that's when I went, "Okay, maybe there's an opportunity here." That I hadn't thought of at all. So, and then it was the next steps after that.
See, my career was a little bit different. I mean, I was a truck driver,
Hmm.
although not a long haul guy. I was had my tractor trailer license and everything, but I I had a really terrible attitude.
Well, geez, it's really changed with age because it's way better now then.
Well, I did, and looking back now, I really felt sorry for the people that I worked for.
Hmm.
Um, but I had a terrible attitude because I can remember being a truck driver and hating it
Yep.
because I had a college education and I wasn't using my education at the time. I was in my
Mm,
early 20s, and
right.
by this time I owned a house and had a mortgage and had
Hmm.
kids, and I couldn't take a pay cut. And that's what
Mm,
would have happened had I wanted to use my college education. I would have had to
right.
take a pay cut
Sure.
and come off the road.
Right.
And so I couldn't do that for financial reasons. And
Hmm.
so I finally talked to myself and I said, you're not going to go to work every day hating your job, because I
Hmm.
looked at my job and my job
Hmm.
was pretty good. I was being well paid.
Right.
I was working with good people.
Yep.
Um, and it was a good company I was working for. So like
Sure.
there was a lot
Sure.
of good there,
Yep.
and I hated it. And I realized that it was only me
Hmm.
because I felt I should be doing something different than being a truck driver because of a college education.
Ah,
And
interesting. Okay. Yep.
I
Yep.
finally realized that,
Yep.
well, that was bullshit. So, well, it was. I mean, let's call
Yep.
it what it was.
Yeah.
I was
Exactly.
unhappy with myself,
Right.
and I
Right.
vowed to go to work and have fun and enjoy my job, because if I'm
Yep.
not going to quit, and
Exactly.
as I say, the company was a good company, the people I work for were good people. It
Yep.
was just, it was only me. I was the flaw, if there was. So I changed my bloody attitude and went to work.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
wasn't, I'll bet you it wasn't 3 months before I got called into the office. And this was my supervisor. If Dave
Yep.
ever hears this, Dave Bapty called me into the office. He may not even remember this, but he looked at me and he swore, using a word I won't use here, but he
Uh-huh.
said, "Chris,
Yep.
what the is wrong with you?"
Uh-huh.
And I said, "Dave, what's wrong?" He
Yep.
said, "Chris, I used to see you almost every day bitching, moaning, and
Yep.
complaining about your work.
Yep.
And I've missed you, buddy. Like, where have you been?" And, and so, I mean, I told Dave what I did. I said, "Dave,
Yep.
I changed my attitude because,"
Yep.
and he says, "I noticed."
Yep.
He said, "Chris, by the way, you're my new driver trainer." I
Woohoo!
went, "What?" Um, so, and that's what started things. And I ended up leaving that company. Well, that company lost the contract.
Right.
Another company took it over. And by this time, I worked my way up into operations manager.
Sure. Sure.
And I can remember the day I walked out into the hallway and I bumped into this guy. I didn't know who he was. His name was Claude
Right.
Chalk, as it turned out. But I
Yep.
ran into Claude and he just could see the stress on me. And
Yep.
he ended up, it took several minutes, but he convinced me to go for lunch with him. And
Hmm.
after we had lunch, he met me a couple of weeks later in my office and we chatted a little bit. And he basically said, "You're about to quit, aren't you?" I
Mm,
said,
mm,
"Well,
mm, mm.
I'm pretty stressed out. I could,"
Yep.
he said, "if I had an opening in the safety department, would you apply?" Because at that
Oh,
time in our company, you had to post the job and see if anybody
right.
internal wanted it. I said,
Sure.
"Yeah."
Yep.
you know, and so I was fortunate that I found that Claude found me
Yep.
and he mentored me. And I worked
Perfect.
for about 5 years under Claude in the
Yep.
safety department. And that's how I learned safety, because when
Right.
I first joined Claude, I didn't know what needed to be in a truck driver
Yep.
file.
Yep. Yep.
I had no
Yep.
idea. I didn't even know what that green book was. Remember the green book that
Yes.
FM's,
Yep.
right?
Federal regulations. Yep.
I didn't know what that was,
Yep. Yep.
but because I wanted to learn it and Claude
Mhm.
wanted to teach somebody,
Sure.
it was a
Perfect.
marriage made in heaven.
Yep.
And I was fortunate to have a really good mentor. I was
Awesome.
lucky that way.
Awesome. Yep.
So,
Awesome.
and
Yeah.
that's cool for two reasons. You didn't have a mentor, and
Not in the beginning. No. Yeah.
you became a very successful safety person. I was fortunate and I had a mentor,
Yep.
and I became a safety person.
Yeah. Yep.
So two different paths,
Yes. Very much so. Yeah.
kind of equaling the same. I mean, you now have your own company. You started your company up a few years after I started mine. And by the way, I get this question a lot. Are we partners? No, out there,
Yeah.
we're not partners.
I get
We're
the same thing.
competitors.
Yep.
In many ways, we are competitors. But, John and I, obviously, we get along. We're friends outside of work. And we both have different strengths within
Yes.
the safety and compliance business. But we're not sharing the dimes at all.
No. And I was going to say, if anything, I would actually call it strategic partners, where we are aligned for the same goal in the industry, but we don't own the same company together, or we don't share ownership and anything to that effect. But we're strategic. Where we'll share work back and forth if need be. There's things that I don't do that you do. There's things you don't do that I do. So it's kind of like, well, hey, let's help the customer, but we specialize in our different areas.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but John and I got to this safety area totally different ways. How did you end
Yes.
up at Zurich Insurance way back when?
Well, so interesting enough, when I was after I'd closed down the trucking company and I got into doing a little bit of freelance safety, what I did is I still owned my company. The company was called Trans Global. And so what we did is we just restructured the company and we called it Trans Global Risk Management Services. And doing some freelance stuff, and word got out. It was just word of mouth mostly with what I was doing, but I was at a client and I was helping them manage their safety programs. They were about I want to say somewhere around 25, 30 trucks. It was actually a company I used to work with years prior. I used to be an owner operator on with their fleet. And then when we had Trans Global going, the way we did freight back and forth. So I knew these guys quite well. And anyway, they had called me up and said, look, we need some help. We're at a stage now. We really need a safety person on board. And then I kind of integrated into a little bit of their operations just so the owners who ran the show could take vacation. And so I was able to do some dispatching and find freight because I had all the contacts. But anyway, the safety gig, and what it was the company was up for renewal for their insurance policy. And the insurance representative was insured with Zurich, had come in to do the evaluation or assessment. And I was the representative for the company at the time. And so I walked them through everything that we were doing. One, they were quite impressed with the controls we had in place. And then, he was quite impressed with what I had done and realizing I was not an employee of the company. I was more of a consultant, helping them out, set them up, get them going, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, he had made the comment that he says, wow, he says, you're pretty good at this. Has you ever thought of maybe working on the insurance side? And I went, no, never thought of that. Just like, geez, dude, like I'm still just learning this. So anyway, a few months later, I got a phone call from one of his coworkers that I happened to know, and I didn't know he worked there. Anyway, he called me up and he said, hey, Johnny. I said, oh, hey, Tom, how you doing? Yeah, I'm talking to you in a Coons aid. He used to work for my uncle. And he goes, hey, we're looking for somebody over here. He says, think you might be interested in having a conversation with somebody. Well, yeah, why not? Let's see what happens. And so I did end up having a conversation with the manager of the team. Unfortunately, I was told later I didn't get the position because they hired somebody else. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I didn't know this at the time until I think it was another 6 months after that. They called me up and said, hey, we want to rekindle that conversation because we're looking for somebody again. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think they hired anybody. But when they did bring me on, they said, yeah, we did hire somebody. Um, it's not that that person was any better. It's just they were brought forward and somebody else had put in a good word and the way they went and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't have any references because, well, I was self-employed. So needless to say, that's how I got into Zurich Insurance. And then I was still contract. I was on contract, I guess, for 3 months before they actually hired me as a full-time employee because they didn't have approval for headcount yet. They were told they were getting it. They didn't have it, but they could hire a contractor. So they hired me on as a contractor. So within the 3 months time, the VP of the department had come to me and said, look, we want to offer you a full-time role. We're quite blown away by what you're doing. And I went, what am I doing? Like I'm just, you kind of set some groundwork and I've jumped at it. And they said, well, we like what you've done. You've just taken initiative on your own. And we're quite surprised by that. And I said, well, that's just how I've always been. Self-employed, you want to get somewhere, you want to get something done, you do it. And that was kind of how that started. So from there, it blossomed really well. I was quite impressed with my progress for the next 7 years, almost 8 years I spent there. The manager of the team was no longer the manager, so they had no manager for the team, but he became my mentor to teach me about insurance. He'd been there, by that time he'd been there 20 some odd years, and he'd built a lot of what the team had. And so he really educated me even further. I already had a good understanding of the regulations when it comes to transportation in Canada and the US, but he took it to a whole different level with regards to risk when it came to how you address it from an insurance perspective, from a court perspective, because it was all about how do we defend ourselves, defend the company, right? So, yeah, so it went crazy. And I went from being a field rep to within 5 years, I was manager of the team.
Yeah, see, and how I got into insurance was a little different. The trucking company I was working for that Claude and I were both at changed ownership, and that really changed the culture. And
yes, that'll do.
It was a drastic change, and it was unfortunate. But my insurance rep from the insurance company comes in to do their thing. Yep. And I figured, hey, this guy's going to all these different trucking insurance or going to all these different trucking companies. I said, and his name was Mark Richardson. I said, hey, Mark, who's hiring a safety guy? I'm looking for a new job.
Sure.
And Mark said, well, the insurance company needs somebody. And I said, no way. I'm not working for an insurance company. I'm a safety guy. And believe it or not, I went for an interview.
Yep.
And they said, hey, would you like to come on board? I said, no, I don't think so. I don't want to work. I don't know anything about insurance. Anyways, So I took a different job. I was at that job for about 3 months, and a truck show was happening. And the insurance company was at the truck show, and I saw the VP who interviewed me, and he said, how are things going? I said, this new job's just not working out. And he said, well, we haven't hired anybody yet. Why don't you? And he said, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you go for a day with Mark, call in sick and go with our safety guy and see what he does.
Yep.
So, and that's what I did. So I went out with Mark for the day. Cool. And when I saw what the man did, I went, holy jumping, I can do this. Well, because I thought you had to know something about insurance to work for an insurance company. What a misconception.
So, I know. They're looking for somebody that has the expertise that you already had.
Yeah. So it was shortly after that I phoned up the VP and said, yeah, this looks good. He said, great, come on in. Let's discuss, the benefits and the salary and all that kind of stuff. And we quickly hit a deal. And within 2 weeks, I was working for an insurance company. Now, the insurance company did say, hey, we want you to take some night school courses because there's this thing called a chartered insurance professional, a CIP. And it was 12 courses when I first started. He said, I don't want you to get your CIP, but I do want you to take some of the courses because it'll give you a little bit of insurance knowledge, which would be really useful. I said, okay.
Perfect.
And I did. And I ended up getting my CIP, my CRM, and my most prized designation, of course, CDS, the Certified Director of Safety, all while working at the insurance company. They paid for it all.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a little extra work at night to do that, but hey, it was my career. And so I ended up working for many years, you know, before I went off on my own. It was great. So anyways, I asked the safety guy from the insurance company who was hiring in trucking, and it took about 7 months, but I ended up working for the insurance company. So
Awesome. Yes. Quite the journey.
well, it was actually, and
Fun.
Mark Richardson and I were the two guys there. We had a lot of fun, and you know, for anybody that's listening to this, and why in the hell would you? I mean, shit. But anyways, I'll tell you, the insurance industry, I don't know how you felt about it, John, the insurance companies that you work for, because you ended up working for, I'm counting them up, 3.
Yeah, one of them I don't count, but nonetheless, yes.
Well, you ended up working for 3 different companies as things transpired, because Zurich got out of the trucking business and you had to find a new home. But would you agree with this statement? I thought working for an insurance company was one of the best gigs going.
Yes, I agree. It was good. It was a great job. I will admit that. Probably one of my biggest frustrations that I had while working with the insurance company was my abilities to help a client were limited somewhat, because I had so many clients to see on behalf of the insurance company, right? We would go out, we would advise what you need to do, what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, what you should do. You know, here's best practices, here's things you need to do. But it kind of stopped there, right? It's different than what we're doing today, where I can actually go in, sit with the client and say, okay, you know what, we're going to spend the next 4 hours and we're going to work on doing these things and teach you how to do this. We didn't have that availability at time, unfortunately, because the insurance company didn't hire us to do that approach. That's where they said, well, that's where those consultants come in handy. You get them to take a consultant and use that and whatnot. So if anything, that was probably one of my biggest downfalls. But the bonus part was when a customer called you to say, hey, I need some advice or I need some assistance. Can you direct me? Can you get me in the right place? That's where we shined, and we were able to say, here's the path you need to go. This is what you need to do. Unfortunately, I can't hold your hand because I'm just not allowed the time to do that. But it's a really good job to be able to say, I can really help people get on the right path.
Yeah. I mean, the company I worked for, which is not, our employers don't overlap.
No.
But the company I was working for, they really wanted us to be as much of an assistant to the company as possible. But at the same time, the lawyers said, you can't do too much.
Yes, exactly.
Because we can't be perceived to be the safety department, because that puts us in a legal risk position. So they were very careful as to how far we went. But you know, there was one employer when I first started out in 2011. There was one insurance company that was perceived to be very strict, and if you don't do what we tell you, you're going to be without insurance or not their insurance partner. And our company, I was told, no, we don't want to be perceived like that. Work with the client, be a helpful resource as much as you can. And of course, as I said, we had limits, but as much as we can. So anyways,
but that was because that was the whole idea, is I want to help you. I'm not here to tell you how to run your company, and I'm not here to, penalize you for what you're not doing. I'm here to help you to be a better company. I'm here to help you get on the right direction and the right path. And that's the whole idea of what you and I and all the experience that we've got is to share that with people,
Well,
and help them and guide them to be better companies because it made better profit margins for insurance companies.
that, and I mean, and it's exactly what we do today. I mean, let's
Hmm.
do an advertisement for Summit Risk Solutions and for Safety Dog, but
Dog.
that's
Yep.
exactly what we do today. Is
Yes.
we take our experience, but now we're able to
Yep.
work with the company a little longer.
Hmm.
Although we
Hmm.
both, neither one of us are working at any company one day a week or anything like that. We come in, my
Nope.
model is, and I think you're similar, I'll come in one day a month for a few months, but not
Hmm.
forever,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
train
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody and get the
Yep.
ship going in the right direction. And then I'm going to
Exactly.
slowly tailor off
Yep.
or back
Yep.
off and let you do it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
having me come in too much is too expensive.
It is. It is. It's right. And we're here to help. So, and both of us have the same approach where we're here to mentor.
Yeah.
We were both mentored at one time to get to where we are now. Now it's our opportunity to mentor other people. So that's exactly what we both do. Is we'll come into a client, we assess what's going on, and we talk about what you need, and then go, okay, let's create a service plan. Let's help you. But yeah, I don't want to be here forever because you should be able to own this responsibility and take it on. And then we go on, move on, find another client. If you want us to come in once a year, once every 6 months, say that's cool. But if you're managing it properly, you don't need us there every month, every day, every week,
Yeah.
every quarter. So
Follow the templates and the
yes.
plans that we create with the client together.
Yep. Yep.
If you can follow a simple direction, then
Yep.
you'll do fine.
Yeah. Well, and I guess here's an opportunity for us to toot our horns because of all the consultants out there, and there's a lot of good ones, and unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ones. We know that, and I think the whole industry knows that. But I think we're part of a group, a very small group, to be honest with you, that have come from the insurance sector and brought our knowledge to the transportation world to be able to say, I can tell you more than what I could tell you before. And now I can hold your hand and help you as to why it's so important you need to move in that direction. Because again, we were bound by liability clauses. We couldn't, no, you can't say that. You can't do that because the insurance company can't be held liable, right? So, well, now we don't have that problem because we don't work for the insurance company. So it makes it a
Uh,
lot easier.
yeah, and there's, just a comment on the other good guys out there. So there's, we've got a good background from an insurance perspective. There's other
Hmm.
safety consultants out there that have a
Yep.
good background from other things, such as there's some of our competitors that are very
Yep.
worthy are
Yep.
ex-MTO officers.
Exactly.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
so
Yep.
I give a shout out to those guys who have spent
Yep.
their life, serving the government and now have come
Sure.
into the private sector and
Yep.
are competitors to us, but they're
Hmm.
some of the good ones as well.
Right.
So
Right.
with
Yep.
that,
Exactly.
last word, John, we're just coming up to the 30-minute mark.
We've talked that long already? Holy crap. I think the temperature's gone up 4 degrees in my office here because we're so long winded and hot airbags talking about this. But final words, you know what? If you're struggling, if you're trying to find your path, if you're trying to figure out what you're doing and your operation just needs some assistance, you know what? Look. I'll be honest. Look to guys like us. Look to the guys that can help you, that will mentor you. I'm a big advocate for those that want to mentor. Do yourself a favor. Don't hire the guys that want to take it over for you. They're not going to help you. They're going to do it for you, and then you'll never learn anything. You'll never learn how to own it and how to take it on because, well, as consultants, we all come and go, right? And our time's going to come up. We're going to retire. We're going to be on vacation, and when you need us the most, that's when you should know what you need to do, so you don't need us the most.
And I would offer, I'm sure you do this as well, where, hey, if somebody calls me up and if I spend 15 minutes, I've spent half hour lots of times on the phone and
Mm-hmm.
I never
Mm-hmm.
bill. It's just
Yep.
giving out
Yep.
advice, helping somebody
Yep.
else out
Yep.
because, at our age now, it is time to give back. So
Yes.
if,
Yes.
if you need a quick answer, and as I say, 30 minutes, you may not think is a quick answer, but
Mm-hmm.
John and I will certainly give you a 30-minute 30 minutes of our time at no charge and just help you out just because it's time to be giving back.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot of times that, you could call up Chris or I and say, hey, when's the next time you're going to be in my area? Could you stop by and have a conversation with me? I'll stop in, and I know Chris will do the same thing. We'll stop in and chinwag for 15, 20 minutes and see what it is you need and have a quick look and go, okay, yeah, here's some ideas we can do. And if you want, we can come back. We can give you a hand. Let's set something up and make it happen, So, but if anything, hey, if I can educate you in just the least little bit way, I know we've improved the industry a little bit.
Well, and quite possibly we've made our highways safer, and those are the highways that we all share. So
yes, great.
And I think with that, let me wrap this one up. Hey, that was John and I talking about how in the heck did we become safety professionals. If you have any questions, any goals and desires, reach out to John, reach out to Chris. Our contact info is in the show notes down below. We're happy to help. It's time that we're giving back. All right. And so with that is it for this week on the Trucking Risk and Insurance Podcast. We're out of here.